Hello, and welcome to Before the Door, a podcast by Door Monster fans for Door Monster fans. I'm your host, Backdoor Productions, and today we're joined by Grace Huntsman. Say hello, Grace.
Hello.
Before we begin, are there any other names or usernames you go by around the Door Monster community?
Not actually, no. I'm quite consistent with Grace.
Alrighty. Second time in a row for that's all it is. For anyone who is not as deeply involved in the Door Monster community, how might they know you?
Well, if they're on the Discord, they will probably know me because I'm one of the mods and I'm also one of the people who talks like daily or like one of the never shut uppers according to Gigabread. Otherwise, I've been in some, like lately, not anymore, but I've been in some live streams, in the chat, mainly around COVID time. So some of the Okay, we're ups, the Half-Life Alex streams, for instance. And I think I've once got a comment into Comcom, which I'm still very proud of. So, yeah, those are some things.
Yeah, I think we're all proud of our one like big shining community comments moment. You mentioned also the Kyle Half-Life streams. Are you a part of the salmon cult?
Yes, for sure. Yeah, I'm actually one of the people who like made one of the original screenshots of the salmon drawing on the glass. So definitely a big salmon cult person. Although I also recently got converted very convincingly to the Zack pack. So yeah, just all the cults as a true Door Monster fan.
As I believe it was, I don't remember if it was Allison or Kyle said, our fan base is extremely susceptible to new religions. Um,
Yeah, it must be the how do you call that? The civilization videos that caused all this.
yep, the original, boat Mormons and denouncing
Yeah.
Venice.
Hmm.
Although you could argue that some of them started before then. I mean, we had Technicus long, long ago. Um,
Oh, that's true.
But before we get
Yeah.
any deeper into the Door Monster related stuff, could I get one
Mhm.
quick interesting fact and one quick boring fact about yourself?
All right. So one interesting fact, which people on the Discord will know, is that I poke brains for a living. I'm doing a PhD in neuroscience. Mainly, actually, in real life, I collect poop for a living because I study the gut-brain axis, so how your guts and your brain relate to each other, and we need stool samples from people for that. Luckily, they collect it themselves and they freeze it so it doesn't smell. But yeah, that's definitely an interesting job. And I guess the boring fact about me is that even though that's my job, I still spend like half of my day just sitting at my desk writing emails.
Yeah, that is the unfortunate result of I think many jobs.
Yeah, unfortunately.
But to start getting in a little deeper into the Door Monster stuff, how and when did you first discover Door Monster?
Yeah, actually, quite by accident, I would say. It was just a bit before COVID, like November, December 2019. And basically, I'm really not very involved in YouTube. Like, I mainly, like, especially before 2009, like, in or before 2019, I'd mainly use it just for music and for like one or two other things. But then at some point, I think I just had work to do that I wanted to procrastinate on. I just had one of those days where I was really tired and I was just going to YouTube and scrolling through the recommendeds, and then there was one video. I'm pretty sure it was the Perception one with Squire, the video, and I was like, let's watch that. Like I feel bored, whatever. And then it was, of course, really fun because it's Door Monster. So I started watching a few other random videos that showed up in my feed, and then or like that showed up at the like recommended after this video thing. And I was like, oh, this is cool. And then I just started a binge watch and went through everything, as we all do as well, I suppose. And then I just kind of stuck, I guess.
So how long after you had discovered those videos did you join into the Discord?
I'm not sure. Like, I think it took a little bit of time, but I think it was at one of those moments when they were advertising the Discord quite a bit. And of course, a few months later, also COVID hit, and that really increased my involvement as well, I would say, because then, yeah, I had the time. Kyle and Allison were doing the Okay, we're up streams, which for me were conveniently at 3 p.m. So I would just, yeah, quit my like work from home for a little bit to listen to that. But when I joined the Discord, like it was just before the switch to the new Discord. So I think it may still have been like the end of 2019, maybe the start of 2020, but around that time.
All right. So you mentioned the first sketch you saw was Perception with Squire. What is your favorite
Hmm.
sketch, or any other Door Monster video, and why?
Yeah, I find it very difficult. Like I still really like the diplomacy, for instance, is great. I think Vivek also said that like that's a really good video. I also like with a special sort of place in my heart because I think it's one of the earlier ones I've seen is the Can't See Green video, which I thought was just really funny. Just the idea of yeah, people with color blindness just actively not seeing any green, like it doesn't exist. Yeah, I thought that was very fun. But otherwise, yeah, like the hobo is cool, like the civilization saga, all of the guards themselves, like yeah, so many things.
So, in addition to a favorite sketch, do you happen to have a favorite Door Monster actor?
Favorite Durmonster actor, like yeah, I really like all of them, I would say. I don't really have like a big preference. I did note like also just in streams, like Ian seems like a really nice guy. Like he hasn't been in the crew so much, of course. Like he and Rachel got a baby, so yeah. Um, that's yeah, I can imagine he's not in there so much. But they also recently did a podcast again, and I was like, oh, like the Kyle and no, the Kyle and Ian like vibe together is just I really like it. So I'm glad they ended up doing that. Like I think the death of YouTube one.
Yeah, that's been really fun to listen to. I think they've only got 4 episodes out thus far. Maybe might be 5 because I believe there was a episode 0 as well. Just going through some of their early videos and kind of tackling it in a more methodical way. They did do it in a more scattered way previously with Tiny Table, but it is really nice. You're right to get that Kyle and Ian dynamic of just these two friends goofing off and at the same time reminiscing about these weird points in their lives where they were working on kind of ridiculous projects at times.
Yeah, indeed. This actually reminds me there is this one video, I'm not sure if it's on the Ding Dong Ditch or anything, but where Kyle and Ian discussed their like old airsoft movie script, and it's hilarious. I like it so much. Like how they're just looking back at what they like wrote when they were in high school and just pointing out the flaws and like laughing at the silly things. Like yeah, I really like that as well.
I still want to see them complete that because the I know exactly what video you're talking about. I'm think it might actually be on the main channel. I can double check on that. It was during the I believe it was during the Skyvault live stream period, but they discussed airsoft, the concept behind it, and then they read off the very first part of the script. But we haven't got the rest of it. We just get the kind of opening act with the protagonist whose name I cannot remember, which bothers me. I will have to go back and watch that video. But just the protagonist's introduction to the school and the bit where he suddenly gets drawn into the Scott Pilgrim-esque world of airsoft. And then I think that the last moment they described was when this hero type character shows up. Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of those early projects. Uh, it would be so fun to hear more about them. I mean, I could mention Last Ditch Grenades, but I have a feeling there will be a couple other people who will want to talk about that a little more in depth on later podcasts. So we've kind of talked around a lot of Door Monster related things so far. But what is it you like most about Door Monster? What keeps you coming back to the channel and the community?
Yeah, I think it's a combination. Like, part of it is of course the sketches themselves, because like, yeah, the humor just really strikes with me. It's just a really nerdy, goofy humor with the punchlines, and yeah, it's just very well made, of course. But on the other hand, Yeah, I feel like I'm kind of a like I came for the funny sketches or by the funny sketches, and I stayed. Yeah, also just because the crew just seems really nice. Like I haven't met them in person, but just in the community comments and the extras and the live streams, like yeah, everyone just is really nice, and yeah, also just really funny in real life, which I also really enjoy following. And of course, just the Discord is very fun to be in. Yeah, of course, the crew themselves don't hang out there so much except to announce streams and so, but it's just very nice to have a random group of internet strangers all over the world who are just kind of connected by Door Monster and nerdiness, and that's it. So it's just a combination of all those things.
Yeah, I think it's, and that's a good tagline also. Door Monster, come for the comedy, stay for the community. It is a very kind of tight, well, I don't know, tight knit makes it sound like it's closed off, because it is tight knit, but it is very much open to anyone. I will again plug, if you're not in the Discord, please come on over. Lurk if you have to, but please come on over. It sounded like the answer to this next question might be something you've already mentioned, but how deep into the Door Monster fandom are you? What's the most obscure bit of Door Monster knowledge you have?
Yeah, so I guess like I think the most obscure, or at least the hardest to access for me, a bit of Door Monster knowledge is that I ended up listening to the original like White Noise podcasts, which I found because in some of the old videos there's some comments that link to it, and then I ended up at like a what do you call that? Like the Internet Archive page that just has all of them. And I was like, this feels so like I'm not supposed to find these things. But they're quite funny. Like they're really like I think one of the first things Kyle was doing, like in the first video year, like possibly yeah, and it's very fun. It's where it's quite nice also for some lore things like why Ian's nickname is Sir Snifty because he just
Yep,
invented the
yep.
word snifty. Yeah, I found it was very fun, but also kind of, yeah, you need to know where to look. So I guess that's the most obscure thing.
I have been re-listening to the first season. It's not as hard to find the first season anymore. You can
Okay,
just, if you Google White Lightning HQ White Noise podcast, you can find it on a couple of different podcast platforms. None of which have very good playback features. It is really hard to like navigate somewhere particular within the podcast, but you can listen to them all. The later seasons are still a little more obscure to find, and of course, the live episodes are still available on, I believe, Ding Dong Ditch. Might be the main channel. Any of the stuff around that time, it feels like it was a coin toss whether it ended up on Ding Dong Ditch or the main channel. Um, but yeah, those ones are a lot more accessible. I think those were the first White Noise episodes I listened to. But yeah, definitely worth a listen. Would caution that it was recorded around a specific point in time in which a specific word was used a lot more casually, so just watch out for that. But otherwise, very good listen through.
oh, sorry, I just thought of something else. Like, I'm not sure how obscure it is, but also during COVID, there were just some game streams that I think were just on Twitch and weren't really saved. Like, I know Ian, Rachel, and Ricky, I think, did a Persona 4 stream at some point, and there was the burp percent in which they were playing Pokemon and catching only birds, including the friendly Burp Satan and Burp Jesus. I don't know if there's actually records of like of maybe of some of them. Like some of them may have ended up on YouTube as well, but some of them may just kind of be gone. So then they're quite obscure.
So, almost all of those, with the exception, there were a couple of Bird Percent episodes which I think got saved, but almost all of them were not. The especially, and there are some streams which were not even game related, which were like these semi podcast things, which have been completely lost as far as I know, or at least if Allison and Kyle have the recordings, they've never been posted anywhere. Um, Acts of Feminism is, as far as I'm aware, no longer accessible, and neither is Pros with Con. which I never got to see a single stream of, which I'm deeply disappointed about.
Oh no.
There are some things which just disappeared. The 24-hour stream also gone, unfortunately. Um, but we, but look, there's still plenty of remarkably obscure things that we do have. So we'll be happy for what we have rather than be sad for what we don't. What other YouTubers, if any, are you passionate about?
Not so many actually. Like as I said, like I was quite specific with my YouTube before I joined Door Monster, and I must say, like also just due to time, there hasn't been so much added. Like it's really now just music and Door Monster kind of. Some obvious things like I really like Tom Cardy. So that's one thing I ended up listening to a lot. Like he gets posted all over the internet. I feel like the Tom Cardy songs. They do have swears, so if you don't like them, you don't like swears, then don't listen to the songs. But they're very good for anyone who hasn't heard of him yet. Which I don't know. I can't imagine people not having done that, but I suppose they exist.
And do you watch any YouTubers or play any games because of Door Monster?
Actually, thinking of that, I'm not entirely sure. Like, I did start and like start playing Stardew Valley at some point, but I don't know if it was at the time or related to the Door Monster video, or maybe even just someone in the Discord recommending it. So that could be like at least sideways related
It wasn't
to
Ursa
Door Monster.
Polaris pushing it on you, was it?
It wasn't actually. No, yeah, I didn't go the Mefek route. Like I did that a bit earlier as well. I also never got so far again due to time, but I did have a lot of fun with the game. So I can imagine why Ursa would recommend it and why Mefek like why it has ruined his life.
I surprisingly have still not played it, but it's always enjoyable to hear other people enjoying it, and especially to see Kyle and Allison play it on some of the old OKWU live streams was very enjoyable.
The other way around, I think is funny as well, because at some point my sister started playing. Like my sister doesn't know Door Monster, or at least didn't know Door Monster, but she started playing Civilization, and then I actually sent her some of the sketches. I was like, "Oh, you probably like get these references now." Like I thought the videos were very funny without getting the references, but then it's like, "Oh, you play it now. You need to watch these videos."
The amount of times I've in a real life conversation been like, hold up, there's a sketch about this, and just pulled up a door monster sketch is frankly embarrassing. Um, but like, and not just the video games either. Like, someone will say something about couponing, and I'll pull up the spending and saving video. Someone will literally knock on wood, and I have my phone out with the knock on wood episode up. There's entirely too many relevant door monster sketches. Yeah, it's a very enjoyable thing to have.
Yeah, I love that so much. Like that feels very fitting for you, I would say. Um, and also, actually, this reminds me because there's this Dutch company that's called Angie, and I always have the Angie and Spy song stuck in my head whenever I see this company, which is so annoying.
Prank time with Engie and Spy, fooling around just a couple of guys. Yeah,
Couple of guys. Yeah.
a very fun song. You know, I think that's one of the few songs that is not on any of the Door Monster albums. I could be wrong on
Oh,
that.
it should
I'm
be.
pretty sure.
It should
I'm
be.
pretty sure. I'm pretty sure even Straight Man might be on a Door Monster album, but I don't think Engie and Spy is. I could be wrong. I will have to double check on that.
It ought to be there. Yeah.
It ought to be there if it's not. Um, to finish things up, uh, for someone who has never seen a Door Monster video, what sketch or video would you recommend them first?
Ooh, I think it depends a little bit like what person they are or what they like. Like if they like D&D, then definitely like go for diplomacy or like yeah, one of the D&D related videos. Uh but otherwise, yeah, there could be so many things. Like I feel like the most sensible thing would indeed be what you do, like hear someone give a reference and just throw out the door monster video that like is related to that, and then just slowly start like seeping people into liking door monster, like slowly add more and more videos like, oh, you should also watch this. Get them hooked.
Yeah, it's I always find it's a little bit difficult because I always want to kind of inundate them. I'm like, "Oh, you should go watch the whole binge watch playlist." But if they've not been interested at least in one or two other videos first, most people don't have the time tolerance for that. Um, but yeah, no, it's a good call to find what's relevant for them. Uh, is there anything else you would like to discuss before we call it there?
Ooh, no, I think this has been a good discussion. It's been very fun. You're a good interview master.
I try. This is still very much a new experience for me, and the editing is, despite being fun, is also a nightmare. Um, Either way, thank you so much for joining us, Grace,
Thank you for having me.
and I hope everyone listening to the podcast has a happy Door Monster Day.